today. My name is Cindy Paddock. I'm the director here at Eyaawing Museum and Cultural Center, and welcome you all here to enjoy a reading that we have by two authors that are local. We have Miss Lois Beardslee and we have Miss Eva Petoskey. Our third reader is not going to be here today, but we do hope that you enjoy both of them. They have wonderful books and things that they're reading from today. We also have snacks and beverages that are available to everyone. They're free of charge. The restrooms are downstairs too. I mentioned that to everybody. So if no more, go ahead and let Lois talk first, and hope you all enjoy.
My name is Lois Beardslee, and I am an author, and I teach Native American literature at Northwestern Michigan College. And I just want to say, first of all, that I hope that we can make this some sort of annual event. And because I think that we're really in a golden age for Native authors. There are so many of us out there, and Native people are finally finding our own voice rather than having other people speak for us. And probably in the last 2 years, there's really been a big transformation in Native American literature, in that I think Native people have sort of finally kind of broken free from outside constraints, and our writing is a little more political. Sometimes there's anger, sometimes there's love, but I think it's much more truthful and much more straightforward. There's been a lot of pressure for Native literature and Native stories to really concentrate on user-friendly material for an outside audience, and a lot of we have always been pushed towards sort of how-come stories, how the bear got its short tail, things like that entertain people. And like any group of people, we really deserve to be able to speak about things that we deal with on an everyday basis. So Native literature has really changed, and I want to talk to you about other people's work, not just mine. This book just came out from Northern Michigan University Press. It's called Voice on the Water, and all of the authors are contemporary Native authors living in Michigan today. And I was asked to contribute to the book. I did the foreword to the book, actually, and one of the things I pointed out is that this is the book that we all need. And this book is, they had a grant to put this book in every school library in the state. So, and this is really a first. That's kind of exciting. Let's see. Before I read from my own work, I'd like to read from another author. This is a Navajo author named Hirschman John. And he's kind of a big deal right now. He's won a lot of awards, but I really like his work. And this is from his book, I Swallow Turquoise for Courage. I'm going to jump into the middle of one of these poems, and he's talking about his grandmother. Toward the sand dunes by the empty black house, blue sky, tan sand, green yucca and lavender, earth, a lizard sat under the yucca shading himself in the heat. The sand was too hot to play on. Grandma washed her hair with yucca root, sudsy and wet. She combed her hair with an old plastic brush. She wore just a red velvet skirt, nothing else. I could smell her pot of mutton stew boiling over with colored corn and squash. She knew how to feed her young. She was as giving as the soil or sand. Her skin was golden brown like her own fry bread. Her arm-thick pinon tree branches, weathered, unbreakable. Her breasts were crested sand dunes, without the yucca, cracked clay, or lizards. Her breasts were the shifting sand, windswept, the way a sidewinder glides across the warmth. Her aureoles, the San Francisco peaks in the distance. Her prayers, the yellowing corn stalks in the breeze. Nothing is pure. Looking back, I still see Grandma washing her hair, water dripping off her nipples and soft belly, streaming into mud, her red skirt big as a parachute all around her, damp and alive. She shakes out her hair like a cat does. Sprinkles moisten my skin. Her skillful weaving hands take each strand of hair and begin to weave, tying hair into a tzigil, a hair knot. I think that's beautiful, beautiful, loving description of and respect for aging and for every phase of life. When I was a kid, we had a favorite song that we used to tease the older people, and we would sing, "Kokmas na berasmas way, she's the Chinese sing way." And it was, here comes our grandmother. Oh my gosh, she's got hair on her face. I mean, there was nothing was sacred. You could poke at postmenopausal women, everything, and I think that today we're fortunate in that contemporary Native literature gets to bring us alive as people. So I wanted to share that with you. And of course, I know we were supposed to do poetry, and of course I left home a poetry manuscript that I have. It's a book that was supposed to have been out years ago, and it was supposed to be my poetry and Minnie Wabanimke's photography, and we both just work all the time, and so we kind of fell behind. Oh no, look, here it is. Oh, there it is, okay. That's got some good stuff in there. So I thought, well, we're on a kind of a grandmother theme here. And I've been asked to kind of break the ice, so I thought I'd do that. Okay. All right. Is that it? Oh no, that's not. Uh-oh. It's always like this. I'm so sorry. I'm poorly organized. Let's see.
You want me to do some reading and talking while you're
Oh,
walk, or?
that's right. Talk among yourselves. Pretend I'm not. Here we go. Okay. This is from a book of poetry. This is a manuscript I did, and it's based on a traditional Ojibwe calendar. And this is Onaganageesis. It's crusted snow moon. Onaganageesis. Sometimes when my throat was sore, I would stay in the house with the old lady, and she would make me drink lukewarm teas made out of ozawajibik. And I would say, "This tastes like urine from the caribou." And she would say, "Nah, we use that for something else." Never been chased down by a furious grandmother. Okay. This is from Sis Bakwagi's Maple Sugar Moon. It's a sign when the old man does that. He's laughing at himself. For maybe 6 or 7 generations ago, maybe 100, if you're lucky. If you're lucky, you get to touch a couple of those words come tumbling out of his mouth, like Sis Bakwidabo, where the birds have drilled a hole in the maple tree. It comes out fast and thin, like old men's words, then thickens when it gets to the bottom of the tree, or the end of the story. Then it's really sweet. Okay, I don't know how many of you are familiar with my work or not, but I do artwork, and then I started telling kids stories and did some tapes, and they became CDs, and then I started writing books. And my first book, Lies to Live By, was kind of warm and fuzzy, user-friendly, and then I started getting a little more political. And I found that the more political I got, there were like bidding wars over my manuscripts. And I'm known for sort of combining poetry and prose. And my work is considered very experimental, and like this was my last book, The Women's Warrior Society. It's from the University of Arizona Press, and it's won all kinds of awards for writing and for civil rights issues. And it was nominated for a Pulitzer. I didn't get it, but I really milked the nomination. And it's, the Library of Congress wasn't sure what to do with it. They put it under experimental fiction. And the book is basically about how Native American women deal with racism, and especially racism in education. And there are a lot of repeat riffs in the book. These women have these barrettes. I don't know if you notice my barrette. This is my stereotype buster here, my beaded SpongeBob. Anyhow, these women have these really well-made barrettes in their hair, and they constrain all these sort of wild things, you know, windstorms and wild elk, and all these Native women have these things. And when they get upset, the beads start popping loose, and all these things become unconstrained. And that's one of the repeat riffs in the book. Another repeat riff is I start out a lot of the chapters with these 3 Indian women, warriors, walk into a bar, and then it's like, no, wait a minute, that's a stereotype. These 3 Indian women warriors walk into a library. And I talk back and forth with the reader a lot. Do you get it yet? Do you get it yet? You visualize the library this time. So I keep doing this repeat riff in the book. But so I'm going to read you a little bit from that book. This short chapter here called Okechidakwe, and it means a woman warrior. For us, the word for warrior is someone who does big things. That's what it means, how it translates. She didn't know what was coming. She was naive. She was young and beautiful and naive. She had elk and windstorms and wild Mustangs and 57 Chevys running in her hair. She had long, wide eyes that whispered of secrets and turned away with white smile giggles and girlishness in a defiant and untamable way. The white boys called her exotic, and the Indian mothers called her loved one, and the white teachers called her trouble. And she blew in and out of the safety of her Indian world and the hazards of the non-Indian world like a tickleweed along the highway, smiling that smile, flashing those eyes, turning that head full of elk and windstorms, wild horses and beautiful, shining, lustful things. And she was naive. She did not know that she did all of these things. Her mother had told her that she had wild running animals in her hair. But where she came from, so did everyone else. Her grandmother told her that the sun rose in her eyes, but where she came from, this was a common thing. Her aunties told her that wild dogs sang to her at night, and that they wanted to feel the caress of her hand, would domesticate themselves for the scent of her sweet breath in the night. But they had told this to her sisters as well. They had, in fact, been told these very things themselves, those mothers, those grandmothers, those aunties. They had no other reality to share other than their own beauty, and they held themselves up to those young women like mirrors, beautiful, steady, ageless mirrors of motherhood and love and hard work and expectations. So she didn't know what was coming. Now we're going to go pretty far back in the book here. Change gears. They're dancing up there. The elk are unconstrained. Long before those Indian women warriors reached the tiny parking lot, the windstorms have torn loose from their hair, and the seed beads that represent hours of patient labor on beautiful barrettes have been popped from the thread that constrained them as well. They have flown off in every direction, those beads, small projectiles against the gritty gray snowbanks of cold March days and nights, beating like sands against the road signs that beg passers through to slow down for Indian children on the state highway, even though they never do. They are sandblasting the rust off old truck bumpers, pelting the windows of the tribal library like cold hail, They are rolling across ice and asphalt to weed edges and snow-buried, poorly tended auxiliary lawns, and they are beating against the sky, begging for recognition and acknowledgement of the beauty and intensity and deep-seated value of Indian beadwork created lovingly at the tips of long, tired, busy, restless brown fingers. There are wild mustangs on the pavement, and the passers-through down on the state highway are swerving and braking and cursing the Indians, while the beasts dive and start and turn unexpectedly. 57 Chevys have lined up in the drive-through drop-off lane that goes to the front door of the casino. They are revving their engines. They are blinking their yellow headlights. They move up to the doorway, stop, and drop off no one, before heading up the hills and into the woods, where they are careening on back roads and two tracks, whooping and honking, circling subdivisions, tearing into lakeside public boat launches, slamming their doors, popping their hoods, blaring out Bobby Vinton and Roy Orbison. They are rearing on their back tires and howling for the moon, those Chevys, even in the middle of the afternoon. And the bay is swelling, its surface twisted and raucous. The waves are pounding against summer homes and restaurants and private recreational boat slips and marinas. Precious waterfront lots erode and grow smaller. The inherited wealth of homesteaders, usurpers, shudders beneath the wind. The boughs of remnant indigenous hazelnuts that have been lying flat under burden of ice and snow now snap back upright and reclaim dead airspace. Brittle branches break off from tenuous plantation pines, and skunks seeking spring mates give up their lust and run for cover in burrows and fence rows. The metal and glass doors of the tribal library snap back with each new human arrival, and the winds sweep through the vestibule, dislodging the freshly restocked brochures for military recruitment of desperate minority youths. Lights flicker, and a desk clock blinks out a hapless red 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock. A dark blue pickup truck with rust-red highlights backs up to the double doors, and large chunks of old, hollow, well-seasoned cedar are tossed on the concrete slab outside the small metal building. The double doors are propped open with chunks of wood, and the women warriors begin an assembly line, lifting, passing, stacking, until the truck bed is empty and the main room of the library smells of cedar and sweat and hopes and ambition. There are prayers and expectations and encouragement, and the fire is started with neither match nor plastic lighter, but by the practiced long strokes and encouragement of the keeper of the eastern door. It is blown upon, fanned, sung to, and nurtured from a single spark into a great blaze of determination and intent. And when the room is heavy with smoke, its vents heaving perfume and tradition, those Ogichidakweak, those women warriors, they hum to themselves softly. At first you can hear a wolf, deep and throaty, but then you can hear those spring peepers. They've climbed up the walls and the bookcases with those little suction cup toes of theirs, and they're making a racket. Pretty soon those woodcocks jump in, and a bunch of them are flying upward in increasing circles, like males calling for their mates, beeping and twittering, diving in free fall, daring the corrugated metal and sheetrock to constrain them. And a whippoorwill calls out from a dark corner on the hard carpet, and just when you think you can't stand it any longer, those toads jump in, and they puff out their throats, and they trill to one another back and forth, back and forth, back and forth across the room, so loud that you cover your ears. And the rhythmic interacting calls and wild orchestrated motions take away your ability to see or think or feel anything else. You are momentarily captive. The people who are dodging elk and horses down on the highway hear the thrumming and the loud music, and they curse the Indians, thinking that it is mere low-class rebellion in the form of rock music or defiant style of dress and behavior, the kind that is described in the educational journals written by those who have never been frogs, never been wolves, never been whippoorwills, never sung with frogs, never sung with wolves, never sung with whippoorwills. You want to take over for a while? Sure. Go back and forth?
Yeah, I don't mind. everyone. It's wonderful to see this many people gathered here on a January Saturday afternoon. What else would we do? Well, of course, the weather has been nice, and I think that's been unusual, but wonderful. My name's Eva Petoskey. I just live up the road here. And I've lived here for, well, I'm a tribal member in Anishinaabe. And I've lived